Okay, good evening everybody. Erev Tov. Welcome back to Tzurba Mirabanan class. This is our fourth Shiur. It's happy to see everybody, those joining us online that could not make it here in person, and those joining us online wherever you are in the world. Bruchim Habayim. Today, Bezrat Hashem, we are going to finish the second official Shiur of the book, which is the laws of washing hands throughout the day. Last week we touched upon a certain times during the day where we would be required to wash our hands, exiting the bathroom or the bathhouse, cutting nails, and touching concealed parts of our body. And today we're going to look at a few other situations which would require us to wash our hands and the reasoning behind it. And we'll look at the various sources. So that's what we're doing. Again, for those who are unfamiliar with the Tzurba Mirabanan series, I suggest you go watch the first few classes of us or look at it online. But we're studying this Sefer, and we're in volume number 8 if you want to follow inside on page 75. It is a wonderful Sefer with well laid out, easily legible sources with regard to different and various types of everyday halachot that are applicable. So today we're going to look at touching shoes, and whether or not this requires a Netilat Yadayim. In fact, we already know that it requires Netilat Yadayim because we saw it in the halacha at the beginning of last week's class, where the Shulchan Aruch mentioned a whole bunch of situations where we have to wash our hands from, and one of them is choletz min alav, which is a person that takes off their shoe. So let's look at what Mishnah Berurah writes here in source number 21. Mishnah Berurah writes, Mishum shenogea beyadav be'et hachalitza. This would mean that if someone touches the shoe with his hand while he's in order to take it off, that would require him to wash his hands, which implies aval belo naga bahem en tzarich netila. If you're wearing a nice pair of on clouds or slip-ons, moccasins, where a person can take off their shoe simply by taking one foot and pulling off the back of the shoe, then you wouldn't require netilat yadayim. So the inyan is the shoe itself, not the fact that you're taking off the shoe. It's the chefza of the shoe, of touching the shoe, is what makes it your hands dirty. V'choletz min alav v'nogea beraglav v'chofef rosho. He says Mishnah Berurah, three things here: the taking off the shoes, the touching of your feet, and the scratching of your head. Eno mishum ruach ra'ah. These are not because of the bad spirit that may fall on your hand, like waking up in the morning. Ela rak mishum nekiyut. The reason why we have these laws is because of cleanliness. That's really why we want to keep our hands clean. You touch your shoe, your hands are unclean, so you have to go wash it. So says Mishnah Berurah, you don't have to actually quickly wash your hands, go touch your shoe, run, because you have this ruach ra'ah on you. Like you wake up in the morning, don't walk 4 amot before you wash your hands, right? All that stuff that we learned. Okay, they're dirty, fine. So wash them when you can. Which wouldn't be the case when you have something like ruach ra'ah, like we said, where you have to wash it right away. Says Yalkut Yosef, Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, Hanogea b'minalim o b'sandalim sarich litol yadav. Somebody touches his shoes or sandals, he has to wash his hands. Aval hanogea begarbayim nekiyot eno sarich netilah. If someone touches clean socks, he does not need to wash. Shirak b'ne'alim shedorech alehem al gabe karka. Only shoes are being stepped upon the ground, shebederach klal yesh tinuf v'zihum al pnei haaretz, where there is filth and dirt. V'gam shorei ruach ra'ah ala karka, and also he adds there is some sort of bad spirit on the ground. Shneimar arura adama baburecha, that the earth was cursed as a result of what Adam Harishon did. Lachen tzarich netilah keshenogea bahem. So you touch the shoes, you have to wash your hands. Aval begarbayim, but your socks, en derech lalechet bahem ela rispa nekiya. We walk with our socks on clean floors, she'en sham ruach ra'ah, and there is no evil spirit. Lefichach hagorev garbayim o poshtan. Therefore, somebody who puts on his socks or removes his socks, kol she'en bahem ze'ah vezuama en tzarich netilat yadayim, as long as they do not have perspiration or filth, then you don't have to wash your hands. So someone touches shoelaces, does not need to wash their hands. Now, you went and you played a basketball game or a soccer game, and you're taking off your shoes. Okay, let's say you pulled off your shoes not by touching your shoes, but then you got to take off your socks, and your socks are all wet with sweat. In that situation, you might need to wash your hands. But generally, a person wearing socks and it's not sweaty or filthy, then you don't have to. He goes on and more halachot. Mi shechalatz min alav beli shenaga bahem. This we also learned. Someone who takes off his shoes without touching the shoes, en tzarich litol yadav. He doesn't need to wash his hands. V'chen hamoded min alim chadashim v'nogea bahem. So if someone is trying on new shoes, you go to the store and you want to try on new Nike Air Jordans that you want to buy. Okay, you don't have to wash your hands there. וכשאסיר את המנהלים של הרגליו לא נגע במנהלים הישנים, אינו צריך ליטול ידיו, שנוגע במנהלים חדשים שעדיין לא הלכו בהם על הארץ, לא צריך נטילת ידיים. These shoes, yes, they were tried on by others in the store, but generally they were not worn by people around and coming in contact with filthy places. You don't need to wash your hands. הנוגע בנעלי בית צריך ליטול ידיו כמו בנוגע במנהלים. Someone who touches slippers, house shoes, slippers, and you would have to wash your hands just like you touch any other shoe. But some say that if they're open in the back, they're not a complete enclosed shoe, but they're open in the back, like the old traditional slippers. Crocs have that little rubber things can be with the back of the. Mine are always forward, the Crocs. But what? Yeah. Okay, rather knockoffs. But the traditional slippers did not have. Well, mind you, I've had some good comfortable slippers that did have a back, But most people wear slippers with no back. There you go. That's a good example. So they don't have a back. Then you don't have to wash your hands. You get a big chidush here because taking off that type of shoe is not considered taking off a shoe. It's more like slipping in and slipping out. A shoe generally has a front and a back, and that's the chalitza. However, ledina yeshitol yadav gam benogea bebenale bait. He says person should be washing his hands even if he touches slippers. Hanogea b'magafayim, if someone touches boots, afshen geboot umagiot ad abirkayim v'asuyot migumi, tzarich netilat yadayim kedina nogea bebinalim. So this is also a chidush. Person where boots are tall. So a person can argue that if I remove boots, I don't have to wash my hands because my hands are not going to get dirty. I'm not really touching the bottom part of the boot. If the boot is tall and I can just pull it off from the part that's on my calf, so therefore I'm okay. But he's saying, no, you still have to, it's treated like every other shoe, and you have to wash your hands. Last point with regards to the shoes comes from the Sefer Piskei Teshuvot. He writes, "Lechatchila yesh lanogea b'ne'alayim litol yadav kehogen gimel pe'amim ad haperek." A person should wash his hands 3 times when he touches his shoes until the wrist. Ulefachot ad kishre etzbe'otav, and at least until the ends of the fingers. However, according to the strict letter of the law, all you need is to wash your hand once. Here he addresses a question. I only took off my shoe with my right hand. Do I need to wash my left hand too? He says no. You took off the shoe with your right hand, you only need to wash your right hand. But he should not just put a little bit of water, he should wash it well. With regard to touching shoelaces, now remember, Rav Ovadia says touching shoelaces is fine. He says a person touching shoelaces, a person who wants to be lenient has who to rely on. So too, a person that touches his socks, he does not need to be machmir unless they are very soily and filthy. Like the bottom part of the sock, which is very, very dirty. So most people, they take off their socks from the top part of the sock. I know nowadays this is a little unheard of. People don't wear those socks anymore. They like wearing ankle socks or even less than ankle socks. What are the ones called not ankle socks?
No-shows.
What are they called? No-shows? Yeah. I don't understand how people can wear those things. For me, the taller the sock, the better. The more comfortable. That's the way. Right? You're wearing one? No-shows?
They're semi-no-shows.
Semi-no-shows?
I have ones that are almost even
So
more
now, if you're going to take out a no-show, then almost for sure you have to wash your hands. Because if you're not even touching the bottom of the sock, you're probably touching the sole of your foot. Which means, right?
These you take off, you put your foot down, you just rub it back, and they feel right.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, fine. Then fine. But I'm a tall sock type of guy. I don't know. That's just me.
Question.
Yeah.
It's a question like you never want to ask like in high school. Like, what happens if you don't? Like, so you don't wash your hands.
You don't wash your hands.
Can you make a bracha? Can you not?
Yeah, this is not. Yeah, so Rav Vadia brings this idea of Ruach Ra, but again, that doesn't seem to be agreed upon, and by Mishnah Brura. If it was a Ruach Ra, certainly you have a problem. You don't want to say brachot with the Ruach Ra, but the general consensus is that it's not. It's just an inyan of filth. Okay, and if that's the case, okay, you could still say brachot. You know, a person could be, especially that it's not something that he's makpid upon, right? We learned already a few weeks ago. You have a painter who's painting a house, and he wants to eat a snack. He wants to eat a cookie. Okay, now his hands are clean enough that it's not going to get paint on the cookie, but let's face it, it's not clean. Okay, he's not going to be clean until he goes home, and some people probably won't be clean till the end of the week, till they scrape all that paint off. But that doesn't mean he can't eat a cookie and say a bracha. Right? So if he's not makpid on it, then it's okay. And certainly here, where you probably don't see much mamashut, if a person takes off his boot and his shoe and there's mud on it, that might be a different question. And they say, okay, no, you got to wash your hands. You can't recite the blessing with that type of thing. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what I would say in that situation. Yes.
Is there a substitute for like if you aren't near water, you can like do something like I heard like you can scrape your hands like 3 times like this, like on a table or something like that.
Wood.
Yes. There is that concept of a person that does not have water. I think we might. I don't know if we're going to address it today. I think I remember seeing it somewhere here today that. If a person does not have water, or maybe I was wrong, but 100%. There is this concept of rubbing your hand on something to remove the filth. This would not work for the waking up in the morning. But if you don't have water, that's something that we've seen brought down in halacha. Yes. Okay. Okay, good. He brings one last point here. Also, if you have slippers or shoes made from fabric and rubber, which many of our shoes today are, then if a person, if they're dirty and dusty, then you have to wash your hands. He says, this really only applies to leather shoes. So a big chidush over there by the Piskei Teshuvot. Okay, good. So that concludes the touching shoes. We move on to the next one, which is haircuts and touching your hair. And we begin with the Bet Yosef. Of course, the Bet Yosef was Rav Yosef Karo. It was his lengthy commentary on really Torah Sheba'al Peh, where he gets halacha from. But then the Shulchan Aruch came and condensed that. But the Bet Yosef is his commentary on the Tur. That's where the Tur was one of the foremost halachic works, the Tur and the Rambam. So Bet Yosef is his commentary on the Tur. So he says, Katuv b'tshuvot la'Ramban. He's quoting the Ramban and the response of the Ramban. Misha omed b'seuda. Someone is in the middle of a meal. V'niskar shenaga b'makom metunaf. And he remembers that he touched some place that was unclean on his body. V'adai tzarich netila u'varech be'emsa seuda kitchilata. He has to wash and recite al Netilat Yadayim again. Ve'eze makom atinofet ledavar zeh. He goes, what type of place is this? He says, Misavra shelo b'makom tinofet mamash. It's not merely a dirty place. Ela afilu shok ve'yarech, even your thigh or your calf. Umekomot hamuchasirim ba'adam, or places that are concealed. Lefi sheyesh milmule ze'ah, because they perspire. Ve'chen mechakech baros. So too, someone who rubs his head, that would constitute touching a very dirty place, and he would have to wash his hands. It says Shulchan Aruch codifies this. Mi she'omed b'seuda v'niskar shenagah b'shok v'yarech u'mekomot muchasim ba'adam o shechikech berosho v'chol kayoseh bazeh tzarich lachzor v'litol yadav. He has to wash his hands again, v'varech al netilat yadayim, and say al netilat yadayim again. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what does it mean? If he just touched his hair, then that's not enough. And even if he wiped his hands on his hair. So going like this in the middle of the meal, okay, now your fingers might get a little oily from your oil on your hair, but that does not require you to wash your hands. Scrubbing your head and scratching your head is a problem. That's what you might see people when they want to scratch their head. They do it usually with their kippah. Right? They use their kippah to scratch their head. In that situation, you're not actually using your fingers. And let's face it, people's heads get itchy sometimes, and you want to scratch it. Especially the reason why you scratch once, the more you want to scratch it again. So that's what the Shulchan Aruch says over here. So let's look at the Yakut Yosef. He talks about this also. Someone who gets a haircut or cuts some of his hair upon his head requires netilat yadayim. Hachofef se'arot rosho shetzarich netilat yadayim. When the halacha says that a person needs netilat yadayim, hu davka im chaykech toch hase'arot sheberosho, refers where he runs his finger through his hair. Aval im naga bese'arot velo chikech, if he didn't, he just touched the hair, en tzarich netilat yadayim, then benegia bese'ar zu'ama kimu begufo, because hair itself does not involve the same uncleanliness. Hamechakech bese'ar zekano. Someone has a beard. Nowadays, a lot of people have beards. Yesh omrim shetzarich litol yadav. Some say he must wash his hands. Ubipratu samuch lebasar ksheyesh bo mimumeh ze'ah. That's if you're touching the parts of the hair that are closest to the skin where there's a lot of perspiration. Ve'yesh omrim afi mechakech bese'ar zekano eno tzarich netilah. Some say you don't have to, even if you touch those parts close to the skin. V'chen noagim la'olam, and that is what most people do. They don't wash their hands. Ubifrat imirea ken be'emsa limudo. And this is in particular if it happens in the middle of one's learning. And what's going to end up happening? And every time you touch your beard, you go wash your hands. What are you going to learn? Every 10 minutes you're washing your hands. Certainly, a person should not be machmir in that situation. Right? So if you want to, rub your hand on your clothing and then continue learning. So there we see the concept of rubbing your hand on a garment. A person should wash his hands after a haircut, even if your hair was cut by somebody else and not himself. So the first halakha he said in Memdal is a person cutting the hair himself. But no, even if you go to a barber, you have to get a haircut. You have to wash your hands afterwards. What about the barber himself? Does he have to get a haircut? Does he have to wash his hands? So if someone cuts the hair of others, he should wash his hands. But nevertheless, if someone cuts the hair of a 3-year-old or a 1-year-old for the first time, which we call halakah, he does not need to wash his hands. If someone shaves with a shaver, he does not need to wash his hands. Okay? Good. Any questions so far on this? Pretty straightforward, yeah?
Wouldn't it make more sense if the halakha applied more to hair than the beard?
It does. That's what we said.
No, but like that if you touch your hair, then it shouldn't be a problem.
It shouldn't be a problem?
Yeah,
Why?
Well, like how many people are touching their beards and rubbing it like to the point where they always have to wash their hands. Like, I feel like a lot more people are rubbing their hair.
The inyan is whether or not the touching of your hair or any part of your body is in a place of dirt or filth or perspiration or sweat, right? That's what the issue is. Scrubbing your hair or rubbing it hard or putting your fingers through your hair, according to the poskim, that's what happens. Therefore, you have to wash your hands. Whether it's a beard, okay, there is the opinion that the spots close to your face may have more perspiration or more oils than the other parts. But I know a lot of people that are constantly stroking their beard, right? So, especially if you have a long beard. I for one have a very thick beard, so I'm constantly, scratching like this. But even that is not enough to wash your hands.
So you said a lot of this relates to perspiration. So
Yeah.
if you exercise and do hard labor and really sweating, does the halacha change?
Yes. No, not change. I mean, I'm saying, should you wash your hands after you're dirty? Again, if that is something that you feel like David asked earlier, like if you feel that this is something that you feel uncomfortable with, right? You finish a soccer game and you're soaking from head to toe, that you're probably going to take a shower, right? But let's say you're not going to take a shower and you're still soaking up and you want to have it, it's probably best to wash your hands, But okay, so the question then becomes: what if you're playing ice hockey and you want to have a drink? You're sweating. In that situation, it's part of the game, right? But yeah, in general, one thing that we can gain from this whole thing is just it's good to wash your hands. if not for the bad spirit, it's just good to wash your hands. No, none of this is with the bracha.
Yeah,
none of this is with the bracha. Okay, the next one, the final one, in fact. The final Netilat Yadayim piece here, before we look a little bit into Asher Yatzar, is removing mucus, either from the nose or the ear or earwax. So we begin with the Darkei Moshe. The Darkei Moshe was written by Rav Moshe Feinstein. And Darkei Moshe writes, he quotes the Ma'ariel, Katav Ma'ariel, that Tzoat ha'ozen ve'a'af asur liga bahen bitfilato ela al yedei beged. So the mucus from the nose and I guess the ear, a person cannot touch him during tefillah unless he has a cloth. So in other words, a person can take a tissue, okay? If his ear's itchy, he's got earwax in there, and he needs to have a tissue to take that out. Same with the nose, okay? Says the Rama. The Rama in Shulchan Aruch writes in source 29, Makom metunaf, soiled places, hainu mekomot hamchusin ba'adam lefi sheyesh ba'em milmulei ze'ah, bechen im chikei charos, okay, such as a person rubbing his head. Says the Rama, Lachen asur liga b'mkomot elu b'sha'ah she'omdim b'tfilah o osek b'torah. A person cannot touch these places when he's learning or when he's praying. V'chen b'tzoat ha'ozen ve'a'af. The same thing to the mucus and waste from the ear and the nose. Kim al yedei beged. It has to be via a cloth. So the note says below that using a tissue to blow one's nose is comparable to using a cloth, and that's allowed. It says here Rav Akiva Eger, citing the Sefer Chasidim, who requires washing hands after touching some form of handkerchief, but notes that they were not clean even before use, as opposed to today's tissue and toilet paper, which would not require washing hands. So for those young generation that doesn't know what that is, okay. So my grandfather, Zichrono Livracha, he had his handkerchief, right? Yeah, Mr. Ohana in the back says, yeah, that's what it was. You had your handkerchief. That didn't have tissues you buy at Walmart. You had a handkerchief, you blew your nose. After it got soiled enough, you washed it, and then you reused it. So if it was after one use and it's dirty, but there were still places on the handkerchief that you could use to clean yourself, then you would have to wash your hands based on that
diapers you had to launder.
Yeah, even diapers. Even diapers. I know people that did not use diapers for their kids. Today, did not use diapers. So that's all I'm going to say about it. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah here on this halacha from the Rama, ha'ozen v'af ve'agra, that's a Gaon Vilna, mekil bazeh, he is lenient. V'chen katav b'sharei tshuva b'shem Morduk Si'ah. So he says you don't have to wash your hands even if you touch your earwax, according to the Gra. Says Yakut Yosef, we're quoting him a lot today. Hanogea belechat ha'af o ha'ozen, someone touches the mucus of a nose or ear. Yes, omrim shenon tzarich netila v'yesh cholkim. Some say you don't need to wash your hands, and some argue. V'lachen im hu be'emsa limud yekaneach b'midei demanki. If he's in the middle of learning, then he should just wipe with any cleaning material his hands. But nevertheless, lechatchila, watch out for this. Don't touch your nose inside your nose, inside your ear. Ubiprat be'emsa hatfilah ve'alimud, specifically during tfilah and limud. Kemo shekatav Rabbi Chaim Vital, like Rabbi Chaim Vital writes, Hisirani me'od mori. My teacher cautioned me שלא להכניס האצבע בתוך האוזניים כדי לנקות הזוהמה שבהם בתוך התפילה כלל, not to put my finger in my ear to clean out the waste during תפילה, מתחילת הברכות עד גמר עלינו לשבח. From the beginning of ברכות השחר until עלינו לשבח, ואם עשה כן צריך נטילת ידיים. And if you did so, you require נטילת ידיים. Okay? Sometimes, I find that the nose is one that may be easier to be kept because, generally people blow their nose with tissues. But ear, sometimes you don't know your ear itch or something come out of a pool. You got stuff in there. You might touch your ear, and that's something that is that should be watched out for while you're learning and while you're praying shacharit, mincha, or arvit. Okay, good. Any questions?
How soon after you do the thing that makes you unclean do you have to wash your hands, or is it just before you do
So it's like we said before, it's not a rush. It's not a rush, but you should wash your hands. We learned earlier that the washing that has to do in the morning must be done as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Okay. The last part of the Shiur, before we see a summary of all the laws, two more parts. We have Asher Yatzar and washing hands for women. So the Shulchan Aruch writes a very long halacha, and I suggest everybody learn that halacha outside. He only quoted a part of it over here, but actually the halacha for in Shulchan Aruch that speaks about Asher Yatzar is different in respect that it's almost like a Musar class, like where he talks about our body, how it's miraculous, and we have to recognize Hashem, without actually getting to the laws of Asher Yatzar till later. But that opening halacha is not typical Shulchan Aruch. But here we're only taking the excerpt from Orach Chaim Siman Vav Sif Aleph. Kshiatza mi bet hakisei yevarech Asher Yatzar et ha'adam bechokma. When a person leaves a bathroom, he has to say this blessing. Ubarabo nekavim nekavim halulim halulim, created in many openings and hollow places. There's a little bit of difference of a nusach between the Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. Not much of a difference, but there is one. What does it mean? Nekavim nekavim perush nekavim rabbim, many outlets. Kegon pe bechotem upita bat, like the mouth, the nose, and the anus. V'gam barabo evarim rabbim halulim, and we have many limbs and hollows that have hollow spaces. Kemo lev. Like the heart, the belly, and the intestines. Okay, so this is the source of the halacha of reciting Asher Yatzar. This came from early on before him, and this is where it's from. So says the Shelat Yabet. Well, we talked about that in terms of the. I don't know, it was last class, so we washed his hands before. I have to remember to repeat the question because people were telling me they couldn't hear the question online. Shouldn't he wash his hands before Asher Yatzar? So I don't think there's enough gamina between the two. But generally in this situation, there's certainly a filth there. We spoke about the filth of even entering the bathroom, let alone actually going to the bathroom. Okay, so you wash your hands and then you say Asher Yatzar. Yeah, that's what we do. Okay, so says the Yavetz. He says the Hashta. This Yavetz I found a little bit difficult to understand. I thought it was not so clear. Okay, he seems to contradict himself in the second paragraph, but maybe some of you can try to clarify this. But he says the Hashta de'atina le'achid Asher Yatzar bikato da'ahi. Now that we've established that Asher Yatzar is really a blessing of thanks. Blessing of thanks. Hashem, thank you for creating my body that works. It makes sense that once that time for benefit has passed, then no longer is it appropriate to thank Hashem for it. Meaning there's a certain amount of time that you need to say this blessing. And once that time passed, then I can't say it anymore. דהיינו נמי טעמה דברכת המזון. This is also the reason ברכת המזון. דאינו מברך אחר שמתעכל המזון שבמאיו. You can't say ברכת המזון after your food has been digested, which the rabbi says 72 minutes. דמחי עזה להנאה דשביעה לא מבא אלינו שברוכי עלה. Once the benefit of being satiated is gone, one cannot recite a bracha on it. So this is the paragraph that got me a little confused. Al ken niftar bibracha achat al shtei atalot. Therefore, one is niftar, is exempt with one bracha on relieving himself twice. Now, I think what he's referring to here is if a person went to the bathroom once and now needs to go again, does he need to say it again? Does he need to say it twice? This is opposite of the other rabbis. De'inu savur, they hold bracha achat oleh lishne pa'amim. This is where I think he contradicts himself. Where one bracha is suffice for two, velohi, and not the case. Rishona avar zmana ve'en la takana. The first one, the time has passed, there's no rectification. Mechi azil hana'atam, since the time for benefit passed. Because now you needed to go to the bathroom again. So what he could be saying is that you lost your opportunity. So now that you need to go to the bathroom again, the Asher Yatzar you're going to say is not going to cover your first one. It's only going to cover the second one. That's what I think he's trying to say. Masha'enken, the other rabbis will say that one bracha will count for two times. That's why I think the difference is in the theory of it. Now we're going to go see the actuality of the halacha. It says in Mishnah Berurah in 34, "Va'afilu im nimshach zman gadol achar asiyat hatzrachim, afilu achi chayav levarech." So Mishnah Berurah argues, and he says, you went through a long time since you went to the bathroom. You still got to say the bracha. Now, if you didn't say Asher Yatzar and now you got to go to the bathroom again 2 hours later, the Pri Megadim says, say Asher Yatzar for what you did 2 hours ago. Okay? But the Pisket Tshuva writes, Sharei Tshuva writes, that no, now that you feel the urge to go to the bathroom again, you cannot say Asher Yatzar on what you did 2 hours ago. Because now you have a new ta'ava. So therefore, you can only say it after you go to the bathroom a second time. Says the Beit Yosef, Katav Rabbeinu Agadol Mari Abuhav Zal, Shekatuv Be'archot HaChaim Hashem Gon, She'adam She'etil Mayim, if someone went to the bathroom, Ve'isiach Dato Milatel Mayim, and then he said, that's it, I don't need to go to the bathroom anymore. Now, you know what? I do need to go to the bathroom. Change his mind. I need to go to the bathroom again. He's referring to urination. I would think it would be the other one. I would think it would be the number 2, where you would think I don't need to go again and then end up going. But no, he's saying, so you went to urinate, you decide you were finished, and then you went to urinate again. You have to say 2 Asher Yatzars over here, says the Beit Yosef. He says this is like a tefillah. It's like a tefillah. You went to the bathroom once. You didn't say Asher Yatzar yet. Okay? I don't need to go to the bathroom again. Literally 3 seconds later, or 30 seconds later, a minute later, you went to the bathroom again. That's 2 times you went to the bathroom. Says the Beit Yosef, you have to say Asher Yatzar twice. And the Shulchan Aruch codifies that, although we're going to see here that it seems we don't follow Shulchan Aruch. Hetil mayim v'esiach tito milatil mayim, v'achar כך nimlach v'til mayim פעם אחרת, צריך לברך 2 פעמים אשר יצר. Twice. So this brings us to a famous rule that's called Safek brachot lehakel afilu neged maran, which means that in a situation where you're unsure whether to say a blessing, we don't say a bracha, even if Shulchan Aruch says to say a bracha. So, and this happens a few times. So Shulchan Aruch is telling us that you're going to say Asher Yatzar twice. We know we have to say it once. That once is not a question, because you just came out from the second time. You have to say it once. But Shulchan Aruch is saying, you got to say it twice. And comes the Piskei Tshuvot, and he says that we're not going to follow the Shulchan Aruch. Mishnah Berurah she'arbe achronim cholkim apsak zeh. According to Mishnah Berurah, that many people argue that say against this. Okay, no, I think he's saying that Mishnah Berurah brings down that many people argue against this psak. V'safek brachot la'achel, and the ruling is that in case of uncertainty we are lenient. V'gam asfaradim noagim bazeh shelo kedivrei Shulchan Aruch. Even the Sephardic Jews don't follow the Shulchan Aruch like this. Kemo shekatav achida, like the Chida writes b'Birkei Yosef, b'Chaim Yosef David Azulai, ve'od poskim. Omnam, however, im kvar itchil levarech, if you already started to say the bracha, ve'izkir Hashem, and he mentioned God's name, kedai hu marana mechaber sheyesayem abracha, af shetzarich b'gmar abracha le'azkir shum shem Hashem. Then it's best that he finishes the blessing. Meaning, this is a situation where he already started the second time Asher Yatzar, and he started Hashem's name, finished the bracha. וכן רשאי לברך בלא סמום מלכות, או בהרהור במחשבה כדי לחשוש לשיטת המחבר, or what you can do is say the bracha without God's name, or to think of it. And that could be suffice according to Maran HaShulchan Aruch, who says that you have to say the whole bracha twice.
So why?
Sorry, go ahead.
So why the Mishnah Berurah and the other Achronim who argue on Maran, and they say Safek Brachot La'akal? So then if that's the case, why do we say Shachrit twice if you missed Arvit, or Mincha twice if you missed Shachrit? Say the same logic. Safek Brachot La'akal. And if you want to tell me, okay, the Amidah is like a Tfilat Nedava.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's
but
the
that's
answer.
what we're saying here, is that this is also Tfilat Nedava.
That's the answer. So
Right, but why is this not?
Because it's not really a tefillah, but rather a birkat hoda'ah. So there's an issue of you have to be benefiting based on my understanding of this. There needs to be a certain level of benefit here for you to say this bracha. I went to the bathroom. Okay, now I say the bracha because I went to the bathroom and Hashem allowed all this waste to leave my body. Seems according to the Mishnah Berurah, there is no time limit to this, right? The fact that you went to the bathroom 2 hours ago, okay, so still say your Asher Yatzar.
The urge doesn't come up.
Masha'en kenat tefillah, which can be classified as tefillah nedava, is not. No issue of hana.
I don't even think you need the Piskei Shuvot saying, Safek Brachot La'akal. I think the reason nobody follows the Beit Yosef with respect is that the source doesn't make sense. The Gemara on Brachot compares it to Shachrit and Mincha and repeating it. Like that's a mitzvah Seishes Man Grama. Like there are other reasons why you repeat it.
I hear that. Okay, good
chiddush.
Good chiddush. So you're saying that you don't like this. You don't like the Beit Yosef source. Yeah.
With respect.
Yeah. He doesn't bring it down the source in Shulchan Aruch, although not often does he bring the sources down, but.
It just seems like they're so different. It's like going to the water. There's no obligation to go to the washroom 3 times a day, 10 times a day. It's a totally different category.
I hear that. Maybe
what says here?
Yeah.
The underlying issue is whether or not you classify Birkat Asher Yatzar as a Birkat Hoda'ah or a Tefillah.
Oh, it says that?
It's right here.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so that's
in the orange box.
Yeah. So that's why. So that's the. Oh, I didn't even see that. So that's why. Okay, so that's the answer.
That's the answer.
So the question is, what is the classification of it? But then, according to Maria Buav, then if you're saying who's
so
the one?
Bet Yosef holds it's a tefillah. So therefore, just like a tefillah, we have to do twice if you miss. You have to do this twice if you miss.
No, right, but
there's also another reason. You still went to the bathroom twice here in this situation.
No,
so it's not
when you have the urge to go again. According to the one who says you have the urge to go again, that automatically cuts off the previous one. You can only say it once after that. Like if you said Asher Yatzar, if you went to the bathroom 2 hours ago, now you have the urge to say it again. You don't say Asher Yatzar now. You missed that opportunity. You can only say Asher Yatzar after you go the second time.
Yes, not according to Bet Yosef.
Right, because according to them, it would be a bracha she'ena tzricha if you said it now.
Exactly.
Right, but if you're going to say that it's only a tefillah, then it doesn't matter if it's a bracha she'ena tzricha because it's not a bracha, so to speak. It's more of a tefillah than dava, and that's why he allows it that you say it twice, one after the other.
Yes.
After the second time. Orange.
Which doesn't say you don't say Birkat Hamazon twice if you eat once and then eat another time because you got hungry again. It's still within the hour of digestion or whatever it is.
You would have to say another bracha of food, your mezonot, your amotzi.
Why?
If you
Still eating.
if you had a seach hadat, if you had a seach hadat and you said, okay, I've stopped, I'm finished, I'm done, I'm going to play, and you walk out and say, you know what, I want to eat again, you have to say that bracha.
You say one bracha. You say one bracha for night. You don't say two.
You're assuming you said it in the bracha achrona last time.
Didn't say.
No, he's saying if you missed Birkat HaMazon,
Yes.
now you're eating again.
Yeah.
You don't say 2 Birkat HaMazon.
You don't say two becomes, you say
Well,
one.
does
Yeah.
Haruch say two Asher stars and not two Bekat zones? It's like it's not. Isn't it the same category of you're still what you're benefiting from? It's the same idea. I don't understand why he would say two Asher stars.
It's not a tefillah. It's a mitzvah doraita to say Birkat HaMazon. Right? V'achalta v'savata v'rachta.
That's the only thing I could.
It's not a tefillah anymore at that point. It's
That's the only thing I can pick up. Yeah, that one is a mitzvah. You fulfilled your mitzvah, and that's it, right? So,
Even more so. Why should you say two Asher stars? It's just a tefillah. Why would you say like you don't say? I don't know. Why would that? I don't understand why.
it's good. You're right, and I think that's why many of the many of the achronim says, like it's not happening.
It doesn't happen often.
It's not happening. Yeah, and like maybe like David said, like I just the source is incomparable. Like it's not hard to connect one to the other. Okay, maybe Maran Bet Yosef will come to us in a dream tonight. Right? If we're on that level, we'll come back. And it'll clarify what he was thinking about when he said the halacha.
Maybe the show.
Right? All right. The last piece has to do with women. Women are obligated Netilat Yadayim in the morning. We said also all the other rules. Women who touch concealed areas or changing a diaper, they have to wash their hands. So Shulchan Aruch says here in צריך להיזהר בתפילה ובאכילה שלא ליגע בשוק וירח במקומות מכוסים באדם. We saw that last time. And then he says אם אין לו מים יקנח ידיו בשרור או בעפר במקום מידי דמנקי. There you go. You don't have any water. You can wipe your hands on a stone, a rock, some dirt, or other cleansing material. ויועיל לתפילה, and that is effective for tefillah, אבל לא להעביר רוח רעה שעליהן, but not to remove the ruach ra. Remember, the ruach ra, the evil, negative spirit, requires washing of three times. That's it. The note below says that if someone is unable to wash hands at all in the morning, according to Shulchan Aruch, one would recite the bracha of al nekiyut yadayim instead of al netilat yadayim. You'd still be walking around with your ruach ra in your hands, which is a little bit scary. But that's what you would do. Not much reference to women, but we do know that all these laws apply to women as they do to men. They have a nice piece here in the Machshava. It's just something to think about. That's what Machshava means, thought. All right, that on the name of the Otzar Midrashim, he says, Beni, my son, Heveh Zahir ben Netilat Yadayim. Be careful about Netilat Yadayim, ki Netilat Yadayim bichlal advarim ha'omdim berumo shel olam. It is something that stands at the top of the world. Keshetirchat yadecha, when you wash your hands, zakuf etzveotecha lemala, ubarech leyotzerecha. Raise your hands, point your fingers upward, and bless Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe that's one of the reasons why we do lift our hands. Besides for the fact that we want the water to cover our whole hand, to point that this is a very, very lofty idea. And that concludes our Netilat Yadayim. Should we go through the summary? I think it's a good opportunity to go through the summary since we have just a few minutes left. So I'll just read it since I'm directly in front of the camera. We'll go through the summary of what we spoke about in the last 2.5 classes. The impetus for washing our hands, according to Chazon Ish, it's being careful about cleanliness. Shulchan Aruch lists certain cases where we have to wash our hands: rising up from bed, exiting the bathroom, cutting nails, removing shoes, touching feet, rubbing one's head, walking through a cemetery, touching a dead body, delousing one's garments, marital relations, touching lights, touching one's body, concealed portions, bloodletting, shaving, or hair cutting. With regards to funeral and cemeteries, we spoke about the Gemara that says someone enters the cemetery and remains there, he's got the spirit of impurity. Shulchan Aruch says that after you exit the cemetery, you have to wash your hands. Yakut Yosef added certain details. Washing with a utensil is not necessary, but it's good to do so, and don't take the utensil from someone else. And if you are 4 amot from the body, then there's no need to wash your hands, but many are stringent. Don't re-enter the home before washing your hands, and if someone visits the graves of the tzaddikim, no need to wash your hands. When you exit the bathroom, The Gemara in Sukkah says, Rava used to do this. Shulchan Aruch says, in a case of a Persian toilet, Persian bet hakiseh, where the waste is removed from the space immediately, is considered clean. Mishnah Berurah says one who exits the washroom must wash his hands even not relieving himself because of a ruach ra'ah. The Piskei Teshuvot says if the washroom has additional functions, then he doesn't need to wash his hands if he's just washing, let's say, washing by the sink. And make sure no bracha is recited in the bathroom. Cutting nails can cause you harm if you don't wash your hands, according to the Gemara. Shulchan Aruch says that we have to wash our hands after cutting nails. Yakut Yosef says if you cut someone else's nails, you don't need to wash your hands. He also says that if you hear tefillot while you're cutting your nails, you should answer them. And Piskei Teshuvot adds if you cut your nails with one's hands or teeth, you still have to wash your hands. Concealed parts of the body, Shulchan Aruch says that if someone touches covered places on their body, he has to wash his hands. The Mishnah Berurah says this is because they're dirty, not because of Ruach Ra'ah. Piskei Teshuvot adds that this is on all seasons and depending on the locale. Yakut Yosef adds a person should not touch parts of his body in the middle of tefillah or learning Torah. If a person washes his body well and it's very clean, then you don't have to be particular about this as a Piskei Teshuvot, but it's still good to be strict. The Yakut Yosef says in certain other applications, if you touch dirty animals, then you have to wash your hands. If you touch impure animals, then you have to wash your hands. And if you go for a blood test or donate blood, you are not required to wash your hands. The Gemara spoke about when you did bloodletting for therapeutic purposes. Now, the topics that we spoke about today, Shulchan Aruch says you touch your shoes, you have to wash your hands. Mishnah Berurah says it's only if you touch the actual shoe. Yakut Yosef says even if you touch tall boots, if you touch socks or try on new shoes or removing them without touching them, you don't need to wash your hands. Piskei Teshuvot says really you should wash 3 times, but really just the hand that you touched it with and the whole hand best, at least the fingers. Touching slippers, there's no need to wash your hands according to the Piskei Teshuvot, but Yakut Yosef says you do need to wash your hands. Haircuts and contacting with hair, Shulchan Aruch says anyone that rubs their head has to wash their hands. Mishnah Berurah says that is only talking about rubbing the hair, not touching the hair, meaning touching the scalp. Yakut Yosef says someone who gives a haircut has to wash their hands, and the beard, it is a machloket, but the custom is to be lenient. As for the mucus of our noses and earwax, Ramah says that we have to refrain from doing so during tefillah. The Gra says you are allowed to touch these during tefillah, you don't need to wash your hands. Yakut Yosef says, he brings both opinions. Lechatchila, we should be careful to avoid. Asher Yatzar, Shulchan Aruch brings the meaning of the words. The Ya'avet says, if a person did not say Asher Yatzar and has to relieve himself again, he only recites one bracha because there's no benefit. The Mishnah Berurah says that if he needs to relieve himself before having recited Asher Yatzar, he should say it twice, one before relieving himself and one after. But others say he should not recite a bracha for the first time. The Shulchan Aruch says that if he relieved himself, thought that he was finished, and recited a bracha, and then needed to do so again, what should say Asher Yatzar a second time since it's treated like a tefillah? Mishnah Berurah and Piskei Teshuvot says that many authorities accept the opinion of the Ya'avet and that it's a Birkat Hoda'ah, we don't recite it twice. Lastly, washing hands for women. Shulchan Aruch says one must wash his hands before tefillah, touching concealed parts of the body. And Shulchan Aruch also says that we should wash our hands. If you can't wash your hands properly before tefillah, you can wipe them on anything that will clean them, and any other things that have to do where women come into contact with these things, they are also hayav in washing their hands. So this concludes Shiur number 2, which is Hilchot Netilat Yadayim. Bezrat Hashem. Next time we come together, we will begin studying Hilchot Tzitzit, which is a longer, which will take us right to almost to the end of this book, of book number 8. So we're looking forward to beginning that new topic. Wishing everyone a great night. Take care.